Hey, this is Notser, and today we're talking about a bunch of developer blog posts by Wargaming, a bunch of interesting information, French destroyers, clarification on exactly what their position is going to be. We also see new ships. There's an example of the Iceberg mechanic. There is a little bit of information on the Go Navy Russian style event for the Soviet battleships. And then finally, there's a couple new camos and a new model for a very popular ship in the game. But first, let's talk about the French destroyers. Obviously, we've seen the models. This is going to be a dedicated line of fast attacking French DDs that have main battery reload. Main battery reload is attached to the cruisers and some battleships. It's really potent. They're supposed to use their gun and their main battery reload to sort of go in and just wipe out a target quickly and then move on from there. Now, there's a lot of concerns with the French. They're not going to have smoke, and they're not going to have heal. At any tier, they will have to mitigate damage through actively maneuvering and speed. And that is a really uncomfortable playstyle, and it's one that, honestly, I don't know that most players will be interested in, because there's not a lot of safety nets with that gameplay. However, one thing that they've clarified, so you got obviously the engine boost coupled with the main battery reload. They want you to fight like that. But on top of that, they are going to be introducing sort of a different hit point scheme for the French destroyers than they've allocated for any other DD line in the game. Supposedly, the casemate does not take infinite damage. It has a cap, and this is only on French destroyers, and this is only on French DDs that haven't been released yet. We don't even have an example of this in the game right now, because the example ship, the test DD, it was for like 10 days, if that. So Le Terrible actually is using the old, more damaging scheme. We are going to be experiencing French DDs with a scheme that takes less damage overall. So I really need to play them to fully understand it, like to experience the difference. Le Terrible is the least played Tier 8 DD by far. And that's not good if they're going to introduce an entire line designed around that gameplay. Hopefully, the hit point adjustment, coupled with, maybe just refining the core design with the French DD line, it will work. But that is what Wargaming has clarified, that yes, that's, hit and run is the name of the game. You're supposed to use your concealment to get in, maybe take an objective when no one's there, and then you got to disengage if you feel like there's going to be too many people interested in engaging your area, and maybe reposition to another part of the map quickly. That seems to be their tactics. Now, there's no AA listed. I would love to talk about AA because I think that's a real concern, but we're not going to do that. I'm just going to run through it real quick. 100mm at Tier 2, no smoke. All you have is damage control party and engine boost. But that base detectability, it's going to be real good. Having an elite commander on these things with improved concealment, they're going to be really stealthy and 6-kilometer range. So you can already outrange your torpedoes with the base concealment. Not bad at Tier 2. The same thing exists at Tier 3 from a torpedo range standpoint. However, your concealment is not quite as good base. It does require that you invest in camouflage and commander skill to be better than the concealment. Guns are still 100mm, not very impressive. And once again, only damage control and engine boost. So the gun caliber jumps up to 130 at Tier 4. The range of the torpedoes goes up to 9 kilometers, but you still can only have damage control party and engine boost. Concealment slightly worse by 100 meters, not much at all, but clearly you outrange your concealment base. So at least you don't have to worry about that. The Tier 5 Jaguar, 130s, same sort of torpedo system, same lack of anything other than damage control and engine boost. At Tier 6, you get access to main battery reload, you jump up to 139mm guns, and you have, the basic 139mm with a 5 to 7 second reload, and you have a torpedo range of 8 to 9 kilometers. And the base concealment can out-conceal it. it's still going to feel really vulnerable. It's very dangerous. The speed is, 36 knots, 36 knots. It doesn't really get that impressive until it starts going into Tier 8 territory, where it jumps up to the 40 knot realm. But that's pre-engine boost, and if my experience with the Terrible is any indicator, if you invest in Superintendent and the engine boost upgrade module, you can basically have your engine boost effect on for the entire duration of the game. That helps a lot with avoiding shells. I think that early on, the slowness of the ships is really going to be an issue, and you need to use engine boost to compensate for that. So we got the Tier 8. It's the same as the Terrible. It has, very familiar 139s, main battery reload, 43 knots in the water, same detectability, same range on the torpedoes. Yeah, you got the idea. But these are the 8-kilometer range, 75 knot torpedoes, which is awesome. But they are equipped by default on the ship. At Tier 9, they are not equipped by default. It is equipped with slightly different torpedoes that go slightly different, much slower speed. I'm going to assume you'll be able to upgrade into the 75 knot. But yeah, this is the ship class line. It seems okay. I'm very interested to see that armor scheme adjustment on the hit point allocation. That may change it completely. But it's going to be a high skill line regardless. It requires too much active maneuvering and time sensitive decisions. I can't expect this to be played by just anyone. So I'm excited for the challenge, but let's move on because it is going to be a challenge for most. One of the new ships that Wargaming has discussed is the Slava. Now this is a 406mm Kreml. The Kreml is going to be a Soviet battleship, the Tier 10 Soviet battleship, and apparently Slava will take her place next to the Kreml as the second Tier 10 Soviet battleship. Yes, you've heard that right. There is not one, but there's 2 Tier 10 mainline Soviet battleships being introduced in the Soviet battleship line. And Slava's going to be the second one. Instead of having the 457 gun caliber and the accuracy as you gain, as you close the distance with your enemy, and the scout radar, or the battleship / carrier radar, the Slava is going to have 406mm guns, pretty average DPM or below average. It's going to have worse DPM than the 457s on the Kreml, but it's going to have accuracy over range. It's going to have the same armor scheme as the Kreml as well, and that accuracy over range is different because the Sigma, at least base, on all the Soviet battleships is 1.7. This is 1.9. And the reload, 30-second, very average. So the DPM will suffer, but you'll be able to engage over pretty effective range. 22.7, that is the longest range Soviet battleship. I'm very interested in this. It is very different. And that's exciting because that different gameplay allows for a more refined experience. And apparently, in the future, we plan to make similar separation for other ships with similar differences in the game. Now, do you know what ship I think immediately? The Conqueror. The 457s versus the 419s, they need to be separate. They need to have a defining characteristic. I expect maybe Wargaming will do something like that. This basically confirms that any Tier 10 that has hugely different gameplay that would require stat adjustment, they are considering introducing sister ships for the main lines so that players can decide on the exact playstyle they're looking to, take advantage of. Sounds interesting. So I'm very intrigued by this, but it does mean I'm going to have to grind more XP. So it looks like everything is the same. This does seemingly have the Russian damage control party, and it has the repair party that is familiar. Note that there's nothing else, though. There's no radar, there's no aircraft, there's no scout aircraft. That's it. That's all you get. And then we have the DD for the Americans, the Tier 9. This is the one that is sort of the Clemson. You've got 8 torpedoes per side. They're the Benson torpedoes, though, so torpedo acceleration probably going to be mandatory. Yoshino, we've got a little confirmation. Apparently the central part will be 30 millimeters, with the plating generally being 25 around. And then yes, it confirms that these are 310 millimeter guns that we're familiar with. They're the same guns that are equipped to the tier 9, maybe slightly better and maybe one character or other, but nothing really noticeable. But it has torpedoes that did not exist. These are the torpedoes that are equipped to the Zao. These are the 12-kilometer range. This is a win. They're great. I don't know if you will be able to out-conceal it. I don't think you will. I really don't know how useful these torpedo tubes are going to be unless there's an island or something blocking line of sight, because everyone's going to see you coming from a mile away. But hey, and then the Yudachi. The Yudachi apparently is using regular torpedoes. I haven't seen any clarification on this. Maybe it's using the torpedoes that they've described. I assume so, but it's kind of weirdly unspecific with regards to the torpedoes. I do think, though, that these are deep water torpedoes, just based on the earlier discussions that they made. And then there's the premium French DD. It's going to have the same sort of style. It does not have anything other than damage control and engine boost. The Bayard. It's a tier 8 premium French cruiser with main battery reload. I think everyone's going to love it. And honestly, the skin looks pretty good. Let's move on, though. I am moving through this stuff rapidly. The Icebergs. Here's an example of what the Iceberg is going to be doing. And it's exactly as I expected it to be. It is a gap that is covered up by a pretty significant amount of ice. And when it breaks apart, obviously, it's a gap that you can take advantage of now. All right. I think that'll be fine. I don't have any issue with that. It looks good. There's not going to be any hit point bar or anything. Just apparently we'll be able to tell based on the condition of the appearance. See how that works. So, friendly competition. This is going to be the Russian Go Navy style event. But apparently they are going to be making some improvements. So one of the improvements they're doing... Teams will compete to gather points. Both teams, whoever has the most points on each day, wins that day outright. And that's how it was for the Go Navy Sharks versus the Eagles. And there was really no protection for that. Now there is going to be protection. Each time a team with the most points gets a reward, that will increase the difficulty level. So you might see that the teams themselves will trade wins back and forth, and it'll come down to probably the last couple of days or whatever to actually win the event outright. The effort needed to get prizes will increase, but the rewards apparently are going to be getting better as well. So there's an incentive to continuously try to stay on that team, even though there is a larger difficulty increase than the previous design. I think that's great. The opposing team will also come with a bonus that sort of encourages them to not give up and to come back the next day and fight stronger. So all these are great changes, much better than the other Go Navy event. And one of the cool rewards they're going to have some special camouflage researchable for a bunch of Soviet ships. And here is an example of the Vladivostok camouflage. It looks beautiful. It's very Soviet. I think I see a hint of some brick red over here, and you got some white, obviously, some gold, and you have some red flags and tapestry, plus with a little bit of, looks like some metal work, embroidering. I don't know what this is supposed to be on the waterline. It just basically screams your waterline. But I love this style. I love that each of the factions are getting their own uniqueness, and I can't wait because this model looks great. And then, obviously, we've seen this before, but they confirmed that the Black Sea port is the one that's going to be up to date in 8.3, right? Yeah, 8.3. It's going to introduce this whole Port of Glory and the whole Soviet battleship competition. So that'll be cool. Now, one final thing before I go. They are introducing a couple new camouflages into the game for Copper and the, Mali. I'm just going to call it Mali. Copper and Mali. And it's the Rhino camo. This is for the Pagon. It looks cool. It's got a little rhino here. You know, whatever. I'm not really feeling it one way or the other. I don't care. I don't even have the ship at this point because I'm still making steel. We're also the Leningrad and the Minsk. Looks like they're blacked out with some gold trim. And then there's a little emblem here with maybe a silver accent. Looks cool. It's fine. It's, you know, it's okay. I think effectively it's just a black camo though. But hey, that's fine. You'll be able to display your rank symbol for, you know, for even longer apparently. And then finally, the Yamato is getting a remodel. It's one of the oldest models in the game, and it shows it in game. It looks really, really rusted out and bad. The AA parameters have changed because of the repositioning of all of the different location. It just looks more refined, if that makes sense. I've seen the model in game, and I'm sure you can look at it right now. It's all rusted out. You know, it's a completely different style. The guns themselves and the distance spacing on the deck, it kind of feels just a little bit wider and fatter, the in-game model versus this. Like one spacing that in particular that I noticed, this is a little taller. It looks like just a hair model. I could be just completely off my rocker. But also, the distance between the AA and the secondary gun mounts, this looks like it's much closer together than the deck itself in the game. So I don't know that it'll effectively change, you know, the weaknesses of the Citadel and all that stuff, but the appearance itself should be much more impressive, and therefore models with different camouflage and just playing itself, it should be a better experience. This is one of the most popular ships in the game. It deserves to have one of the best looking models in the game, coupled with all the cool camouflages that already exist. You know, the high school fleet, the base premium camo, and then everything else sticked on top of it should look beautiful. This might mean also that they're getting closer to maybe releasing a premium camouflage that is designed for Yamato. I don't think you redo the model if you're not having a reason to do that, and that may clue in that they are working on a more extensive skin that required a facelift for the model. Who's to say exactly what it means? It could just be that they wanted to fix it so it looks good now. And, you know, honestly, that's good enough for me. But super excited for that alternative ship design concept. The Slava and the Kreml both being tier 10s, it gives a lot more options to the player base. And I honestly, maybe that's what the Salem and the Des Moines should have been. Maybe this is what they're going to do. They're going to make a lot more mirror ships when the gun caliber or the characteristics are going to be different to such a vast degree that it has to happen. But, you know, overall, super excited for a lot of these implementations. I'm kind of scared of the French DDs because if an aircraft carrier wants you dead, it's going to kill you. Their AA is not going to be as good as the Americans. They're not going to have defensive AA or like the Soviets or the Americans. And they're going to have to be open water. They can't drop into smoke. They don't have a heel to compensate for damage taken. I have no idea how these guys are going to feel comfortable. But we'll go on that journey together. Hopefully you enjoyed all this information. Tell me what you think. Is there anything that's disappointing? Are you happy that Slava is a mainline ship versus a coal ship? And what do you think of the French DDs? Do you think that seeing the stats makes you more excited or less excited to play them? Either way, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.